What's up? We are still at North Wilkesboro, and I'm still Kevin Grubbs. We're here with Landon Huffman, not to be confused with Landon Huffman. So, this is the third year in a row that we've been to North Wilkesboro with the Cars Tour. Has the effect of walking through that pit gate down into this garage and this such a historic racetrack, does it still have that same effect as it did 3 years ago when you came in here the first time?
Yeah, I think it always will. I think the coolest part about this whole weekend in general is anytime you can see a late model stock car on the racetrack, and then not long after it, a NASCAR Cup Series car is on the racetrack. There's something about that us grassroots racers appreciate, but also gets you in your feels a little bit. It's pretty special. Anytime you can share a racetrack with what we consider the top echelon of stock car racing is pretty awesome in multiple avenues, and not just for our partners, but for all of us short track racers. So yes, to answer your question, it is the same feeling every time we walk in here. Even that first, I don't think anything can top that very first weekend, the revival weekend, when we come in here and the whole grandstands were packed, but it still had that eerie, left to rot feeling.
Yeah.
But life was reinvigorated that weekend, and seeing Junior drive around and the crowd interact, that was really special. But a weekend like this with the Cup Series is always going to hold in high ranking.
Yeah, and one more question I kind of want to ask you is, last year with Carroll, it was kind of a slower year for you and your team. What was it you found, if you don't care to share, or is it some technical secrets or just momentum that you found back to be running back up front more consistently this season so far?
Yeah, definitely not any technical secrets, I don't think. I think more, it takes time to mesh with a group. People don't realize how difficult this series is. And, I went from a situation at Nelson where we worked really hard all season to get to a point where we were competitive, and we won the biggest race of the year, ran great at Martinsville, had a shot really every time we went to the racetrack. And then all that was stripped away from me very quickly and kind of thrown back to square one. Tried to do it on my own and just didn't have the means, the resources, and the support to be able to do it. So I took a step back and then got connected with Justin and John over at Carroll Speed Shop, which have been good friends of mine for a long time. And, we ran a few races, evaluated the program, okay, if we're going to take this next step to get to where we can be competitive, what do we need? What do I need, as a driver? Equipment-wise, what do we need? Back and forth, communication-wise, what do we need? So we kind of put that all on paper and took a look at everything as a whole, and feel like we made the right moves. We went out and got 2 Forrest Reynolds racing chassis, which is what I had at Nelson in the 22, and upped our motor program a little bit, and kind of worked with our current motor guy to make that program better, and brought along my dad and a lot of the guys that work with me on my weekly stuff. So I kind of had some of that chemistry already, and then repetition with John and Justin and me at the track has allowed us to get better. But a lot of moving parts, obviously. I think one of the main parts of it is confidence and just getting to work together.
Speaking of confidence and things along that line, how do you maintain confidence maintain confidence and maintain a racing winning mindset when you're going from a late model and then hop in your modified car that you run sometimes? How much do you have to change your mindset for that?
Well, that's been a whole new experience for me in general.
Yeah, I gotcha.
We basically race the modified with all my late model guys that volunteer and help me with my personal late model stock car. Okay. So the modified's totally different, not just for me, but for all the guys working on it, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't own the car, but Justin Haney lives out in Washington State. He owns the race car, and he had some family ties to me and the guy who used to build engines for my dad back in the day, Shamrock. Golden Shamrock was the engine manufacturer, and now the modified team is called Shamrock Motorsports.
Gotcha. And
so with that being, a thing, it was still a learning experience. It's still a learning experience every time I get out there, but the differences in the cars they definitely show up when I have to jump back and forth.
And one thing I kind of want to just piggyback is, how did the car owner get from Washington State get into asphalt modified racing, which is a very East Coast thing?
Yes.
If you know that story, I want to know now. I'm dying to know this.
So Justin lives out in Washington State. He works for Google, so he moved out there, has a great job working out there for, one of the biggest companies in the world. He grew up on the East Coast,
Okay.
Moved out there. His dad, like I said, owned the engine shop that used to build my dad's Goodies Dash motors.
I got you.
And that was how that connection was. But actually, in like the 60s and 70s, his dad owned a modified team. And then they got away from it, started building engines. And then that's kind of how he wanted to get back into the industry. And fortunately, chose us to do it. And it's, like I said, it's been a learning experience, but we've gotten a lot better. I mean, we ran well in our 2 starts this year and showed some speed and promise. So hopefully we can piggyback off that for the few I get to do the rest of the year.
I gotcha. And you mentioned the Goodies Dash series. So my last question is more of just a kind of a fun question. If you could bring back any defunct racing series, what would you bring back?
Well, it's definitely going to be the Dash series. I mean, my family, history in the Dash series is very strong. My dad's tied for the most championships overall with Dean Combs, which actually happens to be the grandfather of one of my best friends, Dylan Wilson, who's in the field tonight or tomorrow as well, hopefully. So a lot of family history in the Dash series between us two, and Dad's won at Daytona, Bristol, all the big tracks. But the Dash series in general carried a lot of the same weight that this series honestly does now. It was very family oriented. You've seen a lot of the same faces in the pits every weekend. A lot of really hard-nosed grassroots racers were able to kind of find a groove in that series and make a living, like my dad. And he had great partners that supported him all through it, and it was one of those series that definitely connected short track racing and also mainstream NASCAR as kind of a tie-in with some of the tracks. So I'd love to see the Dash series back, but maybe in this current format the Cars Tour can take its place and much more.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this interview.
Of course.
It was awesome talking to you, awesome meeting you. If you're watching this and you don't have Flow, buy Flow, watch the Cars Tour. It is the hidden gem of motorsports in America. Tune in, watch Landon Huffman. He's going to run up front when you watch.